Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met former U.S. President Donald Trump at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida on Friday. The meeting came a day after Netanyahu's discussions with President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris in Washington. The meeting with Biden was held at the White House, where the U.S. President pressed for the Israeli leader on a proposed ceasefire for Gaza. Biden has shown support for Israel while also calling for a reduction in civilian casualties. When Netanyahu met U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, who is expected to become the Democratic Party's presidential nominee, she acknowledged the suffering caused by the conflict, stating that the U.S. must address the humanitarian impact while continuing to support Israel.
About the scale of human suffering in Gaza, including the death of far too many innocent civilians. And I made clear my serious concern about the dire humanitarian situation there, with over 2 million people facing high levels of food insecurity, and 500,000 people facing catastrophic levels of acute food insecurity. What has happened in Gaza over the past 9 months is devastating. The images of dead children and desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety, sometimes displaced for the second, third, or fourth time. We cannot look away in the face of these tragedies. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not be silent. Thanks to the leadership of our President Joe Biden, there is a deal on the table for a ceasefire and a hostage deal. And it is important that we recall what the deal involves. The first phase of the deal would bring about a full ceasefire, including a withdrawal of the Israeli military from population centers in Gaza. In the second phase, the Israeli military would withdraw from Gaza entirely, and it would lead to a permanent end to the hostilities. It is time for this war to end, and end in a way where Israel is secure, all the hostages are released, the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can exercise their right to freedom, dignity, and self-determination.
The visit to Trump's caps a week of significant events for Netanyahu, including protests and boycotts in the U.S. over Israel's actions in Gaza. Trump dismissed any tensions between himself and Netanyahu, saying they have always had a good relationship. Trump criticized Kamala Harris's comments on the impacts of Israel's actions on Palestinian civilians, calling them disrespectful. Netanyahu announced that Israel plans to send a negotiating team to Rome early next week to discuss a ceasefire proposal for Gaza. Netanyahu's visit is seen as an effort to strengthen ties with Trump before the November election. The meeting follows Netanyahu's address to Congress, where he highlighted Trump's policies, including the Abraham Accords and the U.S. Embassy's move to Jerusalem. The war on Gaza, which began in October, has caused significant casualties. U.S. President Biden has pressed Netanyahu on a ceasefire, while human rights groups have criticized U.S. for its support of Israel.